Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. It's Tuesday, August the 2nd. I'm Tony Haggerty, Haggerty 10, excuse me, and I'm joined today by Alison McConnell. Good morning, Alison. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Tony. You?
Yes, I'm very well. Now, Alison, we spoke off air there. I think we covered extensively Celtic's 2-0 win over Aberdeen, opening day of the season, Flag Day. I think we touched upon every subject, did we not?
Yeah, I think we did. I think we were fairly thorough in our raking over the coals of Sunday's game.
Yeah, I mean, we'll step on to the Ross County game further down the week. But a couple of things, Alison, over the weekend that were noticeable was the news that Chairman Ian Bankier was stepping down at the end of the season. And also there was the rumour that Peter Lawwell could be coming back to Celtic in that chairman role. First and foremost, I'll ask you, as the strapline says, Ian Bankier's legacy. And I think when you're a journalist, you don't have much dealings with the chairman, do you, if at all?
No, I think he's been visible at certain occasions, such as AGMs and things like that. By and large, it's been restricted to statements or whatever. I don't think many of us have had too many one-to-one dealings with him at all. I think part of that would be COVID and the fact that we were away for so long, but also I just think just the nature of his role meant that I think Peter Law, when he was there as chief exec, would have been a point of contact for people. But I think Ian Bankier is someone that we don't know particularly well, to be honest.
Yeah, now Kevin McKenna's written a wonderful piece today. I'll put it in the links about Bankier, and he said that his tenure was unremarkable, I think was the word that Kevin used. That's fair enough. I tend to go along with that, Alison. As you just said there, he was not a point of contact for a lot of Celtic supporters, and Sean was particularly vociferous over his treatment of the alleged Bernard Higgins appointment, which Celtic ended up reneging on. And Sean wasn't happy with that. He failed to see that Ian Bankier had read the room in that one. Mm-hmm. And a feature and facet of Kevin's piece is that the Celtic chairman failed to read the room during his time there. Do you go along with that?
I think it was a criticism that was levelled quite a few times, and with a few different particular scenarios. That Bernard Higgins wins, I think, would be the one that will probably be remembered just because of the controversy that it caused at the time, the reaction that it caused, and then, of course, the subsequent climb down almost at the decision just to move away from it. I think that's the one that would probably be uppermost in people's minds when you consider it.
Yeah, there are lots of comments coming in. Michael Ross, Bankies he was almost an anonymous grey shadowy figure. That's fair enough. I just think, I think most people will say that, he just stayed in the background. And if Fergus Mechanics 913.com along, Mark's 9 backs up, say the bank shutting down Celtic for good, then of course no Seville, no Riswell, no tell Frank Brennan there. That's fair enough. And the retro Celtic, agreeing with Kevin, Bankie's legacy is tiresome dullness. Not a lot of people forget Bankier. There you go. But and Sean Curran coming in, Bankier is the start of what has been needed for at least 8 years. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I don't think that a lot of people have got not bad words to say about Alison, but they're very nondescript, aren't they? Because he was kind of a nondescript kind of figure.
Yeah, and I think there was an inevitability about him moving on as chairman. I think I wrote a piece about a year ago when Don Mackay left, a very brief tenure as chief exec. When he left, I think there was a feeling that it was the start of more movement within the boardroom. I think there was an inevitability about Ian Bankier moving on, just as I think there's an inevitability about Peter Lawwell's name then being linked with what becomes a vacant post.
Yeah. Would you like to see Peter Lawwell come back, Alison? Would that be popular, or would that be again reading the room?
It's not a question of whether or not I would like it, but what I would say is, for me, if you were in Dermot Desmond's shoes just now, I think Peter Lawwell as chairman is a very obvious place to go. They had an exceptional working relationship. profound trust between the two of them in terms of directing the business. I think if you were Dermot Desmond, he would be the very obvious candidate to look towards, because you know that he is entrusted with the running of the club. He knows the club. He's remained on the football board, I think, since his departure as chief executive. I think it's I think in many ways it's a sensible appointment in terms of you know exactly what you're getting. There's no one coming in to assess the lay of the land or the club. You know exactly what's going to come. I think it might come down to whether or not Peter Law wants it. It might be that it's his to say no to. I don't know that. It's just that I'm only giving you an opinion. I don't know any more than that. I would stress it's an opinion and nothing more. But I just wonder if maybe he doesn't fancy the hassle of going back, if maybe his family don't fancy what some of what the job entails, or maybe he decides he's at an age where he's enjoyed being out of the limelight, he's maybe enjoyed taking a step back. I don't know. But I do wonder if maybe it's a post it's his to say no to.
Yeah, can I go along with that? But the Retro Celtic comes in here and says if Peter Law gets the chairmanship, it'll upset the apple cart. There you go, lots of people get things to say about Peter Law coming back and Kevin Ferrier, as long as he doesn't intervene with the team. There you go. Fair enough. I think the opinion will be continued to be divided on that particular issue. Now, Alison, a real sad note today as well, or last night. John Hughes, the original Yogi and Feed the Bear, sadly passed away, a member of the Celtic family. And I wrote a few things down about John Hughes. He played for Celtic 1959 to 71. He won 7 league titles. He won 9 domestic cups, 5 league cups, and 4 Scottish cups. He was commissioned a European Cup winners medal because he was part of that team that wasn't actually in the side that played in Lisbon. He had 419 appearances, 189 goals. He's one of only 29 players who have scored 100 or more goals for Celtic. And he once scored 5 in an 8-0 win over Aberdeen on a freezing cold day, wearing what can only be described as white sannies, I think it was described as. And in 1965, he scored 2 penalties in a 2-1 League Cup final win over Rangers. But he's most remembered for his headed equaliser against Leeds United in front of a record 136,505 people at Hampden, when Celtic beat Leeds United over 2 legs 3-1. And John Hughes scored the equaliser, beat Jackie Charlton to a header, and then jumped about 2 inches off the deck to celebrate as he tried to jump in the air, which has caused a lot of people a humorous moment. But from all accounts, I never had any personal dealings with him, Alison, but I'm told he was just a wonderful, wonderful Celtic man. He was 79, died after a short illness, and there's a recent photo of him, and he's kind of looking behind Celtic Park's in the background, and he's got a big beaming smile. But anybody and everybody who's paid tribute to him said he's a wonderful person and just a Celtic man through and through. So we pass the condolences on to his wife and his family, his sadness.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's he's integral to arguably the most glorious part of Celtic's history, the most celebrated chapter of the club. I think he's he's married to that era. I think he's regarded as a really pivotal part of that team, a team that will be, a chapter in Celtic's history that I think will be lauded forevermore. That is very firmly lodged within the minds of the Celtic support for what they achieved, for the manner in which they turned the club around, and then just went on to enjoy success that will never be replicated in the modern era. And I think John Hughes was very much a part of that. Like many players of that era, I think he retained a humility. I think he retained an affection for the Celtic support and a real, you could sense from these guys, the sense of privilege that they felt in representing the club and feeling as though they were part of the story, but without having the real chasm between support and players that you maybe get in the current and modern game. I think it was much, much closer in terms of what they achieved and what they done, and just having a particular kind of rapport with common fans.
Yeah, if any of you guys remember John Hughes as a player, send your memories into the comment section. We'll do our best to read them out. Kevin Ferrier comes in. God bless John Hughes, R.I.P. big man. Yep, totally agree with that sentiment. Pete McGee says Yogi was like a runaway train. Once he went on the run, there was no stopping him. He was one of the most loved players at Celtic in his time, and I was there that night at Hampden. Lucky you, my father was there as well, and I'd love to have been at a game when you had crowds like that. Alison, 136,000. It beggars belief, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, the mind boggles. It really does.
I remember my dad saying at one point he was walking and his legs weren't actually touching the ground, and it was kind of frightening. But that's just the way it was. Hampden broke many records during that kind of period, as you say, and John Hughes is fondly remembered for that. And that's, I've been reading stuff else, and that's sort of saying that he kind of went past players by just knocking the ball in front of them and kind of bundling them over as he ran past them, because he was a kind of big, bulky frame guy, but he was fast. And that's not a bad record there. 189 goals and 419 appearances. That's some shooting.
No, it's not bad at all, is it? I think those are some fairly impressive stats.
Yeah. Beach Boys comes in, and this is something as well that I've seen a lot of. A team statue of the Lisbon Lions is a must at Celtic Park. It was a team triumph. These guys need to respect their due, and I agree with that as well. I think that all of them who were part of that era should be immortalised and with a statue at Celtic Park. Alison, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think what they achieved, I think has been appreciated more of late than maybe. I think there was maybe a spell at the club in the 90s or whatever where maybe it seemed to start to slip away. I think there's been a real appreciation of the Lisbon Lions from the club. I think Martin O'Neill was quite important in beginning that again. I remember one of the first acts he ever had when he came up as Celtic manager was taking them all out to dinner. Like, he couldn't wait to hear the stories and listen to the chat. And I think at points there's maybe been a sense that they didn't quite always have the respect that they deserved. I think that changed. I think that altered. And I think some kind of recognition over what they achieved, because the way that the game has moved and evolved, it's impossible to ever see Celtic competing in such a field again.
And Frank Brennan comes in and says 189 goals and 419 appearances. It's a truly magnificent goal tally for a winger, and a bad in the rest of them would happily settle for half of that amount. I mean, that is astonishing for a winger, isn't it? I mean, that's an incredible tally.
It's exceptional, but even when you just look at the appearances, 416 appearances, it's, if you think of modern day players, how many clock up as many appearances as that for one club? Yeah,
incredible. And Pete McGee, this is brilliant. I really like this. Tony, that night at Hampden cost me my job as I threw a sickie to fly up from London, and somebody shot me. I hope you got another job, Pete. But
there's always one.
Yeah, there's always one. Indeed. It's amazing. And then Andrew, it's amazing how time catches up with everyone, legends included, of course. And that's why we remember them with so much affection, isn't it, Alison? Because they are legends and they've achieved something that is highly unlikely, as you've said, in the modern day game to see Celtic ever do again. But you never say never, and I think Celtic supporters, because of 1967 and 1970 getting to the final again, are always the eternal optimist, and they hope that football's cyclical and the glory days come back, don't they?
Yeah, I think it maybe depends what you're drinking. I think if you look at the way the game has panned out over the last, I'd say, 2 decades, but probably going back even more than that, I think the disparity in resources is such that it's almost impossible to envisage a club like Celtic genuinely competing in that field. I think that John Hughes is just part of an era. He's part of a whole chapter within the club that is arguably the most successful that the club has ever, the most successful time the club ever enjoyed. And I think real personality about that team, and in terms of also what they achieved, there were real characters within the team, and the team itself had a bit of character and a bit of personality.
They're just revered, really, aren't they? And that's why.
Yeah, inevitably revered, I think, for what they achieved, and rightly so.
Yeah. So we say send our condolences and sympathy to the Hughes family, John Yogi Hughes, the original Feed the Bear. And I just want to draw your attention as well. If you're on Twitter, we will be drawing making the draw for the Celtic away top today. So if you're on Twitter, just retweet and you can enter that draw and you can win a Celtic away top. And draw your attention to the bottom strap line. We've always got a deal for you. It's £1 a month for full access, and you can join us at www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Alison, thank you for your contribution. Guys, thank you for your memories of John Hughes, and we'll reiterate again, we send our sympathy and condolences to John Hughes' family, but he'll never be forgotten, Alison. They never walk alone, do they?
And I'm sure lots of people will turn out to pay tribute to John over the next few days at the club and then at his funeral.
Thanks very much. We shall reconvene tomorrow at the same time in the same place. Thanks for all your comments today, guys. Thank you, Alison.
Thank you.